Hello and welcome to another episode of the Maxi-Geek Show. Today is Friday, April 21st, and this is episode number 57. This week was showcase heavy with Street Fighter, The Division, Skate, and Nintendo all hosting events, and there was still more we didn't list. We also got a new batch of games for Nintendo Switch Online and the next wave of titles coming to Game Pass. If that wasn't enough, LEGO and Sega are teaming up once more for new Sonic LEGO sets. But first, Nvidia have announced that the 4070 graphics cards are now out in Australia, and the price point won't require you to get a second job. So one of the big things when Nvidia launched their 4090 cards is they were like $3,000 and then some at launch. And then availability scarcity meant that people were reselling them for far more than they needed to. Since then, they've released the 4080 card and the 4070 Ti card. All of those have been, in the higher end of the price point. The 4070 card is now around, and it will still deliver more performance than the 30 series, like the 3080, which was the big one for the last generation. But the price point starts at $1,099. So, at a quick comparison, currently you can get a 4090 card for $3,000, a 4080 for $2,000, and a 4070 Ti, which is sort of the cousin to the 4070, at $1,400. So even if you go for the very basic model in the Ti and the very basic model in the 4070, there's still a $300 price difference between the two. Now, in terms of what the 70 can offer, Nvidia have said that it will deliver 2.5 times the performance compared to the 2070 card, so 2 generations ago, with DLSS 3 turned on, which is their new super sampling stuff, and then 1.5 times faster than the 3080 running that as well. Basically, what they're saying is that if you're running games like Plague Tale Requiem, Dying Light 2, or Microsoft Flight Simulator, you'll be getting over 100 frames a second with this card. Obviously, Microsoft Flight Simulator is a big game. It is a very beautiful game. It offers a lot visually. So if you're able to get 100 frames a second on a computer with that card installed, that is definitely the way to go. Obviously, the big thing obviously is that price point. To put into context again, the 4090 series cards start at $3,000. I say start, some of them are around $3,100, but the cheapest are around $3,000 even. But they go up to say $3,400, $3,500, depending on how many gigs of RAM you want and all the bits and pieces and the manufacturer. So even if you said no, I want a 4090, you could get the 3 4070 cards for essentially the cost of one 4090. So when you look at it that way, like the value is just absolutely phenomenal on the 4070. We haven't got our hands on one yet. Hopefully we get one soon, and then we'll put it through its paces once we do. But it's just nice to know that the new 40 series of cars are finally coming down into the reasonable price range. The price in US is $599, so $599 US. Once you add tax and convert it, you're around, I think it's like 1,070 Australian dollars. So it's not too far off the price. Moving into the world of game subscription services, as I said, we got a new batch of titles for Nintendo Switch Online, and they are Mega Drive games. Yes, contrary to popular belief, if you live in America, the Mega Drive is the Genesis. We just have it, named differently here. The games are the same. So we have Flicky, Chameleon Kid, Street Fighter 2 Special Championship Edition, and Pulseman. So the games aren't all that special unless you grew up playing them, okay? Street Fighter 2 Special Championship Edition, fantastic Street Fighter. We'll get into more of that later. But, we've seen countless Street Fighter games on the Switch already. There's an entire collection of Street Fighter games. So that's nothing too special. Flicky and Kid Chameleon, they're both there. Kid Chameleon, platformer, Street Fighter, that one. The big one is Pulseman. Pulseman is a platformer. It has a few cool things going for it. The big thing for this one though is this is the pre-Pokemon game from Game Freak. So Game Freak developed this game in 1994 with Sega publishing it, and then 1995 in Japan they released Pocket Monsters, which is known as Pokemon in the West. Yeah, so again, not necessarily an amazing lineup unless you have a connection to these games. The best thing though, obviously, with the service is if you have Nintendo Switch Online plus expansion pack, which is how you get the Mega Drive stuff, it just does give you more to enjoy. And sometimes, playing these older games is a great way to maybe try something that you may not normally, get. If you have to pay $10 to buy the games, you may skip over all 4 of them. But if you have the subscription, it's already there. You may as well give it a go. That same sort of logic can be applied to the Xbox and PC Game Pass service, which also got its next wave of titles announced during the week. So it's pretty much what we'd expect from Xbox. There's a bunch of indie titles, nothing really major in terms of EA or Ubisoft stuff. Ubisoft obviously got a lot last week with Ubisoft Plus hitting Xbox. Out already now is Coffee Talk 2. It's Coffee Talk Episode 2, Hibiscus and Butterfly. That is also on other platforms, but this is a cloud console and PC game. Medieval Dynasty was on PC and Xbox Series originally previously. It's now just come to Xbox One. The ones that came out today were Homestead Arcana, which is a cloud PC and Xbox Series X and S only. You can play it on your Xbox One via the cloud, but there's no native Xbox One version, I should say. Next week, we'll see Cassette Beast arrive for PC. April 27th, we'll see Blaze Blue Cross Tag Battle Special Edition come to, Xbox, PC, and cloud. It is already on Switch and PlayStation. It's been there for a while. The Last Case of Benedict Fox arrives on the 27th. This is sort of a Cthulhu-inspired Metroidvania type games, probably the quickest way I can describe it. And then obviously the big one is on May 2nd, Redfall will release for Xbox Series XS, PC, and cloud. So again, you can play it on your Xbox One via the cloud. There's just no native version. As with all these updates, there are games being removed. So on the 30th of April, so just 10 or so days from now, Bugsnax, Destroy All Humans, Dragon Quest Builders 2, Tetris Effect Connected, and Unsold will all be removed from the service. As I said, this is not exactly a massive, list of titles. It's pretty much an indie-focused update, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Homestead Arcana, personally, appeals to me. It's very Studio Ghibli in its design aesthetic, so I'm going to give that one a go over the weekend. But beyond that, Redfall is obviously the big one. And that's May 2nd for that one. With that, there is a special Bite Back Edition upgrade that is available for Xbox digital owners. EB Games are selling a code for it if you don't want to, give your credit card to Microsoft. So if you have Game Pass and you get the base game through that, you can pay the $44.95 either on the console or via EB Games, and they will upgrade you to the Buyback Edition, which is a bunch of accessories and season pass and stuff like that. You don't need that, of course. That's just an optional thing if you want to. Moving away from that, we actually got a new game announced during the week in the world of Harry Potter, and it is a bit of a weird one. So Harry Potter Quidditch Champions was announced during the week by WB Games, and that's it. That's all I can tell you about it, really. So not even the trailer has any sort of information about it. So I have to give a shout out to Gematsu for basically ripping the trailer from the website, because they didn't even put out a trailer for it. Right? This player's on the website in the background for it, but that's it. That's all they've done, right? So there's literally no other information. We know it is a PC and console game, but they've not specified what consoles. They've not specified a release window. They've not even specified what type of gameplay it is. Is it a football manager type Quidditch game? Is it a Quidditch like FIFA type game? Honestly, they've done nothing for it. One thing we do know is that will be multiplayer focused. So it is there will be a solo offering, but it is a multiplayer focused as well, and the multiplayer will offer crossplay. I did sort of link it in here. There is a video a long play of the Harry Potter Quidditch World Cup game from EA, 15 years ago for GameCube and PS2. So that's in there if you want to look at that. That's quite funny. The thing that sort of concerns me with this is the studio that's making this game is called Unbroken Studios. Unbroken something or other. They are also working alongside Rocksteady on Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. They're like a, support studio for that. So much so as, they're officially being credited. When I say that, I mean like on artwork. Generally speaking, studios that support, like, say, God of War Ragnarok, they're in the credits of the game, but they're not, on the poster, right? These guys haven't shipped any major games that people know. If you go looking at their website, there's not a lot of information there. It is fairly bland stuff. Not to say that, they're a bad developer or anything like that. The content they've made hasn't really set the world on fire. So the games themselves, they've done back in 2015, they did Fantastic Plastic Squad, which is a mobile game what they call a free-to-play multiplayer shooter. Then 3 years later, they did Fractured Lands, which was a battle royale game for PC. So even when Fortnite was still, it was gaining ground, these guys thought they'd try their hand at it as well. It's not there. And then Suicide Squad in 2024 now, and now Harry Potter Quidditch Championships. So again, I'm not saying these guys aren't a talented studio, but the two games they've shipped most people would never have heard of, and the only other game they've been working on that we know about is Suicide Squad, which, as we know, has been delayed almost another full year. So given that this one has no information, there's no platforms, release window, there's literally nothing other than the name and a generic teaser video on the website. Don't expect any other information on this one for a long time, because they clearly got the announcement out of the way first and are worrying about the rest of it later. Moving into some updates, we actually got an update during the week for Horizon Forbidden West for PlayStation 5, which features a very cool addition. I was going to say mode, it's not a mode, it's an addition. So before I get into it, this is very important. This update is only for the PlayStation 5 version. If you are playing this game on PlayStation 4, you are shit out of luck. They've essentially abandoned it. The Burning Shores expansion, which just released this week on PlayStation 5, is only for PlayStation 5. There's no PS4 version coming. God of War last year on PS4 was the last game from PlayStation on the console, and they seem to have just given up on supporting it. Moving away from that, however, we did get us an update, and the reason why I'm calling this update out is they added some accessibility things, new photo skins and all that sort of stuff. But the reason that they've done it is they've put in an option called Phasmophobia mode. So much like Grounded has with its arachnophobia mode, where they're like, hey, there's giant spiders in this game, if you don't like them, you can adjust the level of intensity on the design. Phasmophobia is a fear of large bodies of water. So this is not a fear of, a teacup or a bucket of water. It's a fear of like a giant lake or an ocean. And as there's a lot of diving and swimming in Horizon Forbidden West, they've gone out of their way to put this mode in, so you can actually scale. You can say, hey, I'm not a fan of large bodies of water, even though you're playing a game, you're not swimming in the water. Depending on the severity of your diagnosis of it, it might be that just seeing a large body of water might be a triggering event. So they've added that in there. One of the things that I think is very cool is they've put auto pickups, which if you've played that game, you'll know running around and having to press, I think it's triangle or square, one of those two, every time you pass plants or the branches for the bows, or any of the things that fall on the ground, stuff like that. It's all just not that fun stuff. Speeding that process up is a very welcome thing. I said they did put in additional features like color blindness settings, an auto camera, navigation assist in focus mode, and a whole bunch more. So it's great to see the developers adding new things in, not just saying, hey, we've added a new photo filter, which some updates do. Obviously the big reason for that update as well rolling out during the week is the day after that the Burning Shores expansion released, and this update was required in order to make sure Burning Shores would work for the game. Similar to how Nintendo do it, the Nintendo will release an update for a game that hasn't had content, and then can support content. So similar thing. Also during the week, we had a showcase for Monster Hunter, which revealed new monster details, and we'll go through that in just a moment. So this is, again, for Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak, the DLC for the base game, and this is the 5th major update. Now, the big thing with this is that what's the best way to describe it? The update itself is more for adding more monsters like they usually do. It's not 100% all about the monsters, but the big one is Amatsu, which is, this big dragon here. When I first saw it, I thought it said Amaterasu, and I was like, they put the wolf dog in from Okami? That seems a bit weird for them. But no, that's what they've done, is they've put this one in. As always, a couple of screenshots of it there. When you defeat it and you get enough of the swagger drops, you can craft some armor sets as well. More armor sets, even an Matsu set for your Palamute and Palico. New things like bunny ears and all that sort of stuff. And they also added the additional the Risen Shagu Magala beast. So the Amatsu requires a monster hunting rank of 10, so it's a very low level entry into the fight. This one requires a hunting rank of 180, so it's you need to be a fairly sufficient hunter in order to be able to take this one on. It's there. They're also adding in some additional anomaly research quests to undertake. There's one that requires you to be a level 300 for the investigations. The reason why this is sort of good is this is sort of the last big update for the game. They don't plan on doing any more past this. Story-wise, we'll have to wait and see what they do outside of that. The update will roll out on the 28th of April, so next Friday, for Switch and PC. Sorry, that's out today. The update's out now for Switch and PC. It's the 28th is when the Sunbreak expansion comes to Xbox, PC, Xbox and PC. I'm getting confused. When that does launch, though, that will launch with Title Update 3. So this is Title Update 5. So those on Xbox and PlayStation will get everything up to Title Update 3. So a bunch of new monsters and all that sort of stuff. But then they'll have to wait for Title Update 4 and then Title Update 5. There's no time frame on when those are coming, but they will eventually show up. Sticking with the world of Monster Hunter, a new Monster Hunter game was announced during the week. And I'll put game in air quotes there because I don't know if you can call it a game. It is called Monster Hunter Now, and it's being done by Capcom and Niantic Labs. And Niantic Labs are the same folks that do Pokemon Go. So I'll pop the trailer on because it's a very weird trailer. There's nothing bad about it. It's just nothing all that exciting. It's a pretty generic trailer. But very much like Pokemon Go and Harry Potter Wizards Unite and NBA World Star World 2, whatever the hell they call that one. You'll go out into the world, you'll go to set locations, Monster Hunter bosses and creatures will appear, and then you'll battle them. Based on what they're showing on the screen here, it does look to be a little more like the Monster Hunter experience compared to the Pokemon Go experience. Pokemon Go to Pokemon. How this shapes up, though, we'll have to wait and see. It is expected to soft launch in September. Niantic do tend to like soft launch games here in Australia and New Zealand. Just so we, because we have, we're an English-speaking demographic, so they don't have to worry about converting any text, because they're an American developer, and B, we have a significantly large and spread out population. Whereas, like, say, Singapore's a very dense area where they do speak English, but it's, they can't really test out, traversal features, right? If you drive for an hour in Singapore, you've essentially covered the length of Singapore. Drive for an hour in Australia, you're only 100 kilometers down the road. I did put it out in here, though. The only reason not to be too hyped on this one is Niantic, unfortunately, don't have a great track record. That's not including all the changes they keep making to Pokemon Go that people don't like, and they keep saying repeatedly, don't make these changes. But since Pokemon Go launched, they had a game before Pokemon Go, but since Pokemon Go launched, they have launched and shut down Harry Potter Wizards Unite, which is essentially the exact same sort of premise, except, you're casting magic spells. They announced and cancelled Transformers Heavy Metal. That was announced in 2021. That was cancelled in 2022. They announced and soft launched and then cancelled Catan World Explorers. So if you are a tabletop fan, you'll know Catan or Catan, depending on how you want to pronounce it. That was another one of those explore the world things. Soft launched in a few regions, including Australia. Didn't do well. They cancelled it. In 2021, they released Pikmin Bloom, which is essentially a fancy-looking pedometer. It doesn't do anything. There's no gaming element. You can grow Pikmin and plant flowers and all sorts of weird stuff, but you can't like raise a team of Pikmin to go fight a boss, right? Just a few months back in January, they released NBA All World, which is essentially exactly what you think it is. It's an NBA themed version of Pokemon Go, because why not? They did a soft launch last year of a game called Peridot, which is like an artsy Pokemon game. If you watch the trailer of it, that's there. And now they've announced this one. So they've done this a few times where they've announced games, either soft launched them or cancelled them before release, or they've released like Harry Potter. Harry Potter was out for 3 years, and it just never got the players, right? The whole aspect of drawing on your phone screen to cast a spell didn't really work, right? Whereas with Pokemon, because they have in the games, they have the Pokewatch, or they've had this sort of in-game technology for years, it does make some sense. Catan just never took off. Transformers Heavy Metal, no idea what happened with that one. And obviously Niantic aren't the ones that are the only ones making these games. There is a Ghostbusters one, there's a Jurassic Park or Jurassic World one, there's the Dragon Quest one from Square Enix. So there's a whole bunch of these things, even a Minecraft one for a while. Designed to say, hey, you want to play these games, you've got to go places, right? Obviously the pandemic made that very hard, and one of the big things that they did, Niantic, with Pokemon Go, is they let you do raids without leaving your house, right? You could have 3 raids a day by saying, hey, I'm going to this gym over here and raid it, right? And they've rolled that back, and they keep sort of all these things that made the game playable for people who don't live in dense metropolitan areas. They're stripping all that away. So I myself am not in the CBD of Melbourne, but I can get to there pretty easy. But if you live 5 hours away from a capital city, and when I say a capital city, I only really mean Melbourne, Sydney, or Brisbane. Adelaide maybe, but even Darwin and Perth and Hobart aren't this. They don't have the population densities. If you're not in those cities, it's very hard to play these sorts of games because they're all based around there, right? And the more players that live in those areas, the more things happen. So yeah, this one again, it's a Monster Hunter themed version of it. If you are a mobile gamer and this does make you excited because you haven't played Monster Hunter in a while, Capcom announced last year that they're working with Tencent to make a traditional Monster Hunter game for mobile. So if you're really after a Monster Hunter experience, you're probably just best to wait for that one from Tencent. When that one comes out, we have no idea though. I said this one is aiming for a September release, so we'll just have to wait and see for it. Stepping out of the world of Monster Hunter, we're going to stick with the magic of things though, and we're going to talk a little bit more about Immortals of Avium. So Immortals of Avium was officially revealed in full last week. We do have a preview up on the site because we got to see a lot of the game a few weeks ago. The big thing with this, obviously, it was announced last year during the Game Awards. It is a Magic first-person shooter. And when I say Magic, I don't mean Magic the Gathering. I mean Magic as in throwing spells. So during the presentation, we got to see a whole bunch of gameplay. Now, they released today an actual gameplay trailer that shows off a few 6 minutes or so of actual gameplay. The big thing with this is, again, it's a first-person shooter, and the way it works is that there are 3 colors of magic: blue, red, and green. Blue is your, essentially, if you put it into gun terms, blue is your assault rifle, right? So it's the one that will shoot, pretty straight, pretty consistently, deal some good damage. Red is your shotgun, so it will do a lot of damage up close to enemies, but it won't go out of its way to lay down. You can't do suppressing fire halfway across the map, so to speak. Green is your SMGs, right? Your machine gun. This is the one that you'll use, if you want to, do a lot of shots really quickly, or if you have, an enemy sort of hiding behind a wall, you can use the green to, shoot around. It'll home in on targets. Enemies also have colors, so if an enemy is a blue color, you can use your blue magic to deal damage to them. If they're red, you need the red one, right? Depending on the color and depending on the shield type, that can also be different. You need to make sure you're there. In the footage we saw before, he used a magic whip called a spell called Lash. Lash is essentially, a whip. It'll let you pull enemies to you. Depending on how you use it, you can also throw enemies away from you. So if you're being quite diabolical, you can throw them off a cliff. And then you can also use it to get around the map. So we can sort of see off in the back there, there was this blue sort of dot hiding up high. That lets you, pull yourself up to a higher ledge. So this, you see here, this is an enemy with red magic, so you need to use red magic to shoot them back. There's a lot of first-person puzzles and exploration. So, you have to go through and use the right magic to solve puzzles, to find gear. There's that whip that I was talking about. The sigil, which is the thing on Jack's arm, so that's who you play as. You play as Jack. The sigil is what you use to throw the magic. It's essentially your wand. The big thing with this, though, is that your sigil can be upgraded, so it can deal out more, blue magic damage, or it can reload or recharge the red magic faster, all that sort of stuff. So depending on what sigils you find to upgrade, whether you find them or you buy them, you can do a lot more damage, and you can sort of just make the experience more for yourself. So it's very, very cool looking. It may not be the game for everyone, because it is, locked to first person and the combat is quite fast. But the gameplay, director from Ascendant Studios, Brett, and I've forgotten his surname, he was the gameplay design director for Dead Space. So, the remake, not the remake that just came out, but the original Dead Space. So he's the guy who came up with all these aspects of, this is what we wanted to make as a game. This is what, these are why the enemies do this, and this is why you have all the tools. Here we're looking at some of the sigil stuff. So he was the guy who came up with all the stuff for Dead Space, right? And then when Visceral Games shut down, he went to Sledgehammer Games, and he was the gameplay director for multiple Call of Duty titles. So he sort of knows his first-person stuff and his, gameplay mechanics. So that's sort of everything that sort of, if you want to watch the full videos then I do recommend giving it a go. But the big thing, obviously, is that Jack is a Triarch. So everyone in the world of Avum can use magic. They can use one of the three colors, right? So if you use red, you're generally a frontline fighter. If you're green, you're more of a support person, right? But there's only two Triarchs in the world. Jack, who initially doesn't have magic, but a terrible experience, unlocks the potential for magic within him. And then Sandrak, and Sandrak is the big bad. He's the evil villain who's causing this war to happen. It's known as the Everlasting War, or the Everwar, I should say. It is not going away. He's also a Triarch. He's been a Triarch for a long time, so nobody can really take him down, because it takes three people, one proficient in each of the magic, aspects to try and fight him. But he doesn't need anything. He can just swap and change all the time. So Jack is really the only option they've got at the moment, because he's the only other Triarch around. So if you do want to check that out, I highly recommend it. The game does look very fun. It's coming to PC, PS5, and Xbox Series consoles on July 20th. So it's still a few months away for that one. So there should be more news on that as we get closer to it. Speeding away from video games, we're going to step into the world of Lego and have a look at the new Sonic Lego sets. So the Lego Sonic stuff isn't new. There was a set that were released in January of 2022, and then obviously Lego Sonic first appeared back in Lego Dimensions I want to say in like 2016, 2017, somewhere in there. So the actual Sonic Lego minifig has been around for 7 or 8 years, but the Lego sets are very, very, very small in number, right? So the first set that did come back last year was more a Green Hills Zone traditional set. These new ones are, focus on other characters as well. So the first one is another Green Hills Zone, but they call it the Loop Challenge. Obviously, Sonic can't run because, he's a minifig. They don't actually have articulating legs for running. But it does have that loop, that traditional sort of Sonic loop. This one does come with an Amy minifig. So if we go on the full screen here, so there's an Amy minifig and a Dr. Robotnik. Unlike the Mario sets, there's no special thing for Sonic, that interacts with them. If you hit an enemy, it doesn't get the sound effect. You hit a spike, you don't get the "I've lost all my coins" sound. It's just, standard minifigs. Excuse me. That one will... So all these will release on August 1st. That one is priced in Australia at $170. The next, the second most expensive is the Amy's Animal Rescue Island set, which is, again, the same sort of thing. This one comes with a Tails figurine and an Amy one, and just has a little island playset thing with a bunch of little animals, that once you've busted open the robots, that's what's there. The third most expensive one is the Tails Workshop and Tornado Plane, which is exactly what you would expect. It is a workshop for Tails' plane. Tails plane? Tails plane. And that's obviously you get the plane as well. This one again comes with a Sonic and a Tails minifig. And then the cheapest of them all is the Sonic Speed Challenge Sphere, which is essentially a little part of the like the Green Hill Zone set that we had previously. But it's there. So the thing with this one is the sphere. So you can actually pop Sonic in this. So you do get that in the one that we mentioned at the start, the first one, the Green Hill Zone one. And then you use this launcher, which is kind of a little more Lego Technics than just standard Lego. And you give that a bop and it just shoots out like it's a little bit of a launcher. So Sonic himself can't run, you don't pop him on a little thing and shoot him out whole, but you put him in the ball, and you can see in the box art there. Again, that one there is $53, so it's the most affordable of them. I personally, I'm not a Sonic fan. I'm not looking at these going, oh my god, I've got to get these. These are amazing. I also don't think the same for the many of the Lego Mario ones. But with this one, the price points are actually, pretty decent. Some of the Mario sets have been quite expensive for what you get. And, if you don't have the Mario starter set, they're sort of really not all that helpful for you. Whereas these are just sort of generic sets you can just play with. So that's nice to see. Moving into the showcase, as I said, there were 6 showcases during the week. There was the Skate Boardroom, the Sunsoft event number 2, Monster Hunter, which we dived into just briefly, and then there was the Indie World, Street Fighter, and the Division Day events, right? So there were a lot of events this week, and we learned about more events still to come this week, so there's still plenty to look forward to. So we're just going to speed through 2 of the events before we get to the Indie World, and the first one we're going to have a quick look at is Street Fighter 6, which took place earlier this morning. Now, obviously, they did dive into some of the online stuff, but they've already talked about that in other videos. One of the big things for online in Street Fighter 6 is that you'll be able to create clubs and have your mates join you in your club and off you go. The big thing they showed off is the world tour. Right, we already knew there was a city you could go around and explore, but it's essentially Yakuza, or like a dragon, depending on how you want to call it. But it's a Street Fighter Yakuza game. Right, so it's not violent like the Yakuza series or the Like a Dragon series, but it's that sort of thing. So it's a big city. You have a character. You go around. You can get into street fights. You can buy items. You can meet people. So the big thing is that your avatar that you create is your fighter, and as you explore Metro City, you'll come across, say, Chun-Li in Chinatown, and if you can convince her to be your mentor, she'll start teaching you some of her moves. And the more you interact with her, and the more you present gifts to her and build up your reputation with her, the more moves she'll teach you. You can then use those in fights in the game. You can use them in a special online mode, all that sort of stuff. But, you know, the full roster of 18 characters are in the world. But the big reveal today was that it's not just Metro City. There are multiple locations. So in order to fly off, so you can see on the little screenshot there for the YouTube video, there is I'm just going to say an India type location. That is one of the destinations you can fly to. So you need to acquire flight tickets to travel to other destinations. And some destinations will have, you know, 2 or 3 fighters. Some might have 4 or 5. Some might just have 1. And, you know, again, you can become a mentor to them and learn their moves and use them in combat. So there's a whole RPG system going in there, right? Because as you progress through and level up, you'll start earning skill points, and then you can use those skill points to purchase new moves and functions and all sorts of stuff to make your avatar your avatar. The other thing that they announced too is the first year of content for characters. So you know, they might have other things as part of all these releases, but at the moment it's just the character announcements. So the 4 characters are Rashid from Street Fighter V and Ed from Street Fighter V. AKI appears to be a new one. I haven't heard that name before, so we'll have to wait and see. And then Akuma, who we've seen in a few Street Fighter games, will be there as well. So Rashid is coming first sometime in the winter months of 2023. So the game launches on June 6th. So we'll probably see Rashid coming, say, maybe late July. Then AKI will be sometime in the spring. Ed is sometime in summer of 2024, so January, February next year. And then Akuma will be sometime in the autumn months of next year. We don't know if they plan on doing a year 2. The game's not even out yet, so we'll just have to wait and see on that one. But, you know, that's there, and we got a little bit of a sample for it. They ended the presentation this morning by announcing a demo is available now for Street Fighter 6 on PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 4. And as the game is linked to PlayStation for marketing purposes, the demo is exclusive there for a week. 5 days. On the 26th of April, it will come to Xbox and PC. So there's a whole thing with the whole exclusivity stuff there that I'm not going to get into, but that's there. So if you have a PlayStation, you can get the demo now. If you have Xbox or PC, you need to wait a little while longer. You get a sample of the world tour. You can create your avatar. Ryu and Luke. Luke is he's sort of the main fighter they showed off initially alongside Ryu. So they're there to fight. There's a few other bits and pieces in the demo explains it all, but the avatar creation for the demo will carry across to the full game, so you do get to experience all of that. Moving away from Street Fighter, we're going to dive into the world of The Division, because they had their Division Day event this morning, and they revealed a few things. I got to see this a while ago, so it's sort of blending in my mind with all these different showcases. So the Division Day was just a way for them to reveal a bunch of information about, the 3 Division games that they have at the moment. So the Division 2, the Division Resurgence, which is the mobile game, and the Division Heartland, which is the free-to-play game. So with the Division 2, they're dropping into year 5 of content, so I just put the roadmap up here. So Broken Wings will start in June, and with this first season of year 5, it's going to offer up a new game mode. Now, the only real catch to this is you must own the Warlords of New York expansion for the Division 2 to access this mode. If you don't own that expansion, you can't get it, but you don't need to purchase anything else to get this new game mode. It'll be free to all players, okay? This is a modification of the Manhunt event mode. It's a simulation style thing is what they're showing in the trailers. They've not been very specific on the exact mechanics of it yet, but there is a new game mode coming. The castle will be, we'll start to see changes happening in Season 1 of Year 5, and it will carry across to Season 2. There's no release dates for these either yet at this point, so if you just think every 3 months or so, that'll give you an idea, but they're not set in stone. Season 3 will take players back to New York, which they haven't been to in quite a while, and then Season 4 will unveil new story DLC as well. So all of them will have the traditional gear and all that to earn, new weapons and whatever. So that's all there as well. Moving on to the Division Resurgence. They announced that they would be doing more testing soon, and for the first time it would be coming to iPhone or iOS devices for testing. Previously, due to the way that Apple are very closed about testing and Google are not so closed on it, most tests do go for Android first. So this is now the first time the game is going to iOS devices for testing. There's still no release date for it, but this is a full multiplayer, this is a full Division experience with multiplayer. The city of New York, all the bits and pieces, right? This is not, I made the joke, this is not a Division endless runner or a tactical shooter or anything like that. This is a full regular Division game that you would, Division or the Division 2 from the Xbox, for example, just on a mobile phone. We've seen Ubisoft do this a lot lately. They've done the Rainbow Six Siege for mobile is on its way. They're doing Assassin's Creed Jade, or Project Jade is on its way. That's a full mobile-based game for Assassin's Creed. Unlike the earlier mobile games for Assassin's Creed, this is like Assassin's Creed Odyssey and Origins and all that sort of style. So they're doing a lot of these full-blown, regular style console or PC games just on phone. So you can register for that. They're doing it sometime in the winter months. For the testing, they've not announced when, but that is coming. The Division Heartlands is probably the big star of the event, where they went through a little bit more, showed off actual gameplay. The cinematic intro, which I won't play here, we saw a little bit of it last year in September's Ubisoft Forward event. We'll have to wait and see, when this is coming. There's still no date for it either for this, but they are going to be doing testing as well, inviting more players in. But the Division Heartland is a PvEVP, so it's a player versus environment versus player game, and it is free to play. The big thing obviously is they did a gameplay deep dive for it, and there is a actual thing here where they break down about why you're in Silver Creek, why the virus is a little different here than what it was in New York or Washington, how the base of operations works, how matches work, how things during the day are different to things at night, all that sort of stuff. So they did go through quite a bit of it, to sort of break down what the game is and why this isn't just a free-to-play version of the Division, set in a different city, right? There is more going on. So if you're interested in that, be sure to give that one a look as well. All the links for this will be in the description after the show's done. Moving away from that, we're going to power through some of the Indie World stuff because Nintendo hosted an Indie World event very early on Thursday morning. So much like, all these other Indie World events, this took place at 2 a.m. Sydney time. These things are predominantly run by Nintendo of America, so they prioritize their office location. They're in Seattle, just outside of Seattle in Washington State. So 9 a.m. for them is 2 a.m. for the east coast of Australia, and midnight for the west coast. So they tend to do them at the worst time for us, but that's the way these things work. During the show, we got dates for a few games that we had been waiting on dates for. We also got a few reveals for games. So we'll power through all those. So they did actually drop a number of titles. So Teslagrad 2 we knew was coming. That is now available on Switch and all the other platforms today. It dropped during the show. Teslagrad Remastered is a remastered version of the original game, also launched on all platforms at the same time. If you don't own Teslagrad, or you want the remastered version and Teslagrad 2, there is actually a bundle. You can save a few dollars by buying them in the bundle. Teslagrad itself originally released in like 2012, 2013, so it's been a while. Shadows Over Loathing also released. This is a follow-up to West of Loathing, which is a sort of a cowboy western stick figure RPG. This is the same sort of thing, but it's in like the 1920s. It's very like noir detective. Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach came to Switch on that day as well. It's been out. It was a PlayStation 5 game for a while. Now made its way to Switch. So in terms of games that we either knew about before These all have release dates, so these aren't just like a winter thing, these are actual dates. So Crime O'Clock was announced, and it is coming out on June 30. It is a time-traveling Where's Wally-esque type game. It's the quickest way I can describe it. Escape Academy Complete Edition is coming on July 5. Oxenfree 2 Lost Signals is coming on July 12. This should be July 12 for all platforms. I don't have that in my head if that's true or not. Strangely enough, I didn't realize that the developer actually got bought out by Netflix. So this is technically a Netflix game coming to Switch, which is still hilarious because, the Netflix app isn't on Switch, but, so be it. After, a number of delays, Bomb Rush Cyberpunk is coming out on August 18. This is currently a Switch and PC only game. It is essentially a spiritual successor to Jet Set Radio from Sega. And interestingly, one of the composers from Jet Set Radio is actually creating new music for this game. So there you go. Chance of Sanaa is coming from Focus Entertainment. It is coming to all platforms on the same day. It was just dated during the Indie World event. It looks very, very cool visually. I'll need to see a bit more gameplay before I sort of weigh in on that one. Announced a while ago, Miniko's Night Market is coming to PC and Switch on the 26th of September, and then it's coming a month later to Xbox and PlayStation. Now, these are all the games that have either months or seasons. They don't really have anything. So Paper Trail, we knew was coming. It's now dated sometime in August. Playtop was a reveal during the event. It's coming in October. My Time at Sandrock has been on PC in early access for a while. It is coming to Switch in winter, sometime in the winter months. We don't know if this is an early access release for the game on Switch or if this is the full release, right? There's not really clear on that. Interestingly, My Time at Porsche released a couple of years ago on Switch. That was published by Team 17 at the time. That game launched on Switch in a pretty bad way. It wasn't that well optimized for it. The developers are still the same developers, but the publishers are Focus Entertainment. So whether or not that means they've got more resources or just a different publishing deal, who knows? But yeah, if you're chomping at the bit for this one, it is on PC now in its early access phase. But if you're desperate to play it on Switch, maybe give it a little time until we actually see it running on Switch. Announced during the show for Switch, but confirmed by Team 17 afterwards to be coming to all platforms, is Blasphemous 2. We actually have a separate story on that because there is some new stuff going on in the game. That is currently dated sometime in the winter months, so likely a late November, early December release for this year. Quilts and Cats of Calico is a puzzle game that was announced during the show. It is coming sometime in spring to Switch. There is a demo going up next week on PC. So if you're interested in checking this unique cat-themed puzzle game out, that'll be a demo there for you to try. Animal Well launched recently on PlayStation. It's coming sometime in summer at the end of the year to Switch. That's just another game. It's sort of a Neon-esque Metroidvania type puzzle game. It looks pretty cool. The Crypt of the Necrodancer team have announced their new game. It's called Rift of the Necrodancer. It's coming in sometime in 2023. And it's still very rhythm based, so they've not changed anything there. It has dropped the pixel art style for like a way forward 2D animation, and it's dropped sort of the beats to moving around the world to a traditional, not a traditional, but like a Guitar Hero Rock Band-esque thing. You still have to press the buttons in time with the music. They do have these mini games as well, like say Rhythm Heaven, so there's stuff there as well. So if you're into that rhythm genre, that's probably one to check out. Announced from Blowfish, which is a Sydney studio, I couldn't think of their name for a second, is Brotato. That's coming sometime in 2023. And then in 2024, we will see the release of Little Kitty Big City, which it's a bit of a weird one. It was sort of thrown in there, and I couldn't tell you what this one's about. Obviously, you play as a cat, but to me, I sort of see it as like Stray meets like the world of Persona-esque, right? So not the battling system or anything like that, but just like the world itself. There you It's probably, looking at it now again, it's probably more akin to, say, Untitled Goose Game, but you're a cat instead of a goose. But yeah, so 2024 for that one, nothing beyond that. We also got some information on a couple of DLCs. So Cult of the Lambs is getting their Relics of the Old Faith DLC for all platforms on the 24th. That's adding in new modes, new followers, new buildings. It's seriously just like Cult of the Lamb 2.0. A little to the left in June is getting the new Cupboards and Drawers DLC. This game is on PC, mobile, and Switch. If you like puzzle games that don't require you to understand super complex instructions, this game is very, very well made. It's just literally about putting things in their right place. And when they say a little to the left, they sometimes, if you have something in place and it's not quite straight, it's like, off by 2 degrees, that won't, it's not good enough. It has to be in the right spot. And then also Shovel Knight Dig, the Puzzlers Pack is coming. I said Shovel Knight Pocket Dungeon, is coming in autumn. The same day that this releases, the game will also come to mobile devices as well. So yeah, there was a lot going on in the Indie World Showcase. Again, when it rains it pours. We hadn't had anything for a while, and then this one week we had 6 events all at once. And then I think there's one for next week or the week after. I think it is. Yeah, May the 4th. So Star Wars Day. It's technically happening on the 3rd in America, but for us it's happening on Star Wars Day. There is the Old Republic is getting a live stream where they're going to showcase off new game stuff. That's the MMO. No word if this is going to be connected to the Star Wars Old Republic themed movie that James Mangold is going to be working on. We also learnt during the week that the PC Gaming Show is coming back. It'll happen sort of after the Starfield Direct on the Monday the 12th of June. So that day's a bit loaded because there's also a Final Fantasy pre-launch event happening. So the Xbox and Bethesda stuff haven't been confirmed yet time-wise. We just know they're taking place on the 12th. So the 11th in America, 12th for us here. If they stick to their normal times, 10 a.m., Los Angeles time, which is the time that Xbox do everything, because again, they're in Seattle, so that same window as Nintendo. They do everything at 10 a.m. The ID at Xbox showcase a few weeks ago was at 10 a.m. Los Angeles time, so 3 a.m. for us. If they stick to that same time, 3 a.m. to say 3 to 4:30-esque for the Xbox game showcase. And then the Starfield Direct is rumored to be starting up sort of straight after that. So Phil will be like, hey, thanks for watching our Xbox Direct. Stay here for Starfield, right? If that is the case, Starfield should be 4:30. I've just put on the calendar 5 o'clock just for safety because we don't know. But then the PC Gaming Show is set to start after the Starfield Direct. Now, these things never start, back to back to back, right? So it is entirely possible that the Starfield Direct, say, finishes at 6 or 6:15. At 5 or 5:15. So PC Gaming Show is likely to say start around 6 a.m. The Final Fantasy event is taking place at 8 a.m. On the 12th. We know that because they've confirmed the time already. That's an in-person event in Los Angeles, so if you are in town, go check it out. If you're not, they will be live streaming it as well. We know Ubisoft Forward is happening on the 13th. They traditionally are around 6 a.m. Sydney time, so they haven't confirmed the time yet, just the date. And then today we got word that THQ is hosting another showcase in August. Everyone else is usually a week before or 2 days before, except for the E3 stuff. But THQ, hey, 4 months from now we're hosting a showcase. We know this is going to be 5 a.m. on Saturday, August 12th. So it's going to be an early one. And Handy Games, which is sort of a more indie-focused publisher, they're doing a pre-show. So we don't know if the pre-show will start at 5 or if it'll start at, say, 4:30. They've not confirmed anything like that yet. The way that THQ worded the message is that, hey, our friends at Handy Games are doing this. They're not friends. It's literally the same company. They're both owned by Embracer. So Embracer own THQ. They own Handy Games. They own PlayOn. They own Crystal Dynamics. They own Limited Run Games. They own a whole lot of stuff. So it's all one big family there. So, just be aware on how they're wording that. Let's power through the games coming out over the next 7 days. Obviously, today was a big one with both Advanced Wars finally releasing and Dead Island 2 finally releasing. Advance Wars obviously was delayed a year because of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Dead Island 2 was announced 8 years ago and took a number of developers and a number of publishers before it finally released. Next week on the 25th, we'll see the release of After Image for all platforms. This is a hand-drawn Metroidvania style game. The 25th will also see the full release of Stranded: Alien Dawn for PC, PS4, PS5, Xbox Series X and S, and Xbox One. Strayed Lights will release on the same day for all platforms. And then Trinity Trigger is releasing in America. Releasing in America, yeah, sorry. So if you do have like the Switch and you have an American account, you can get the game all via PC. But the official release here is not happening until May. So just be aware of that one. 26th is when Cassette Beast release. As I said, that is also launching into Game Pass. The 27th will see the release of The Last Case of Benedict Fox, again going into Game Pass. PlayStation and PC fans will get Live Alive on the 27th. That game released last year as a Switch exclusive. That didn't even last a full 12 months, but there you go. Mugen Souls will also release on Switch on the 27th. Amiga Strikers was announced initially back in February as a Switch-only game. It's now coming to all platforms on the 27th. And then on the 28th, the big one is Star Wars Jedi Survivor, launching for PC, PS5, and Xbox Series X and S. And that is it. That does bring us to another end of the show. For all the details about the stories that we talked about and the ones that didn't make it in, be sure to check out the website at Maxi-Geek.au or follow us on all your favorite social media platforms. With all that said, it means it is time to sign off. So until we see you next time, happy gaming.